Chapter 1. Beyond the Zero. In London during the final months of World War II, Captain Geoffrey Pirate Prentice wakes at dawn in his small house, narrowly saving his friend Teddy Bloat from falling from the gallery after a night of drinking. Pirate, who grows bananas on his rooftop garden, prepares his famous banana breakfast for the other officers living in the house. He notices a white trail in the sky, the vapor trail of Germany's newest and most secretive rocket bomb, the V-2. Pirate possesses an unusual ability. He can experience other people's daydreams, serving as a fantasist surrogate for important military figures who need their schedules cleared of distracting fantasies so they can focus on winning the war. This talent led to his recruitment by the Firm, a British intelligence organization. Now, Pirate receives a mysterious call from his employer, instructing him to recover a message from a rocket that fell on London. Meanwhile, Teddy Bloat visits the offices of Achtung, Allied Clearinghouse Technical Units, Northern Germany, where he photographs the desk of American Lieutenant Tyrone Slothrop. Slothrop's desk contains a map of London marked with stars, each bearing a woman's name. As Pirate searches for the rocket in Greenwich, Slothrop is ordered to participate in psychological experiments conducted by PISSES, Psychological Intelligence Schemes for Expediting Surrender, a former psychiatric hospital now serving as a psychological warfare research facility. The experiments are overseen by Ned Pointsman, a Pavlovian scientist who conducts psychological experiments on dogs, and Roger Mexico, a statistician who has developed a complex relationship with a young woman named Jessica Swanlake. During Slothrop's experiments, researchers discover something extraordinary. The locations of Slothrop's sexual encounters, marked on his map, perfectly correspond with the sites of V-2 rocket strikes. But chronologically, Slothrop's encounters occur before the rockets fall. This anomaly intrigues the researchers, particularly when they learn that Slothrop was a subject in childhood experiments conducted by Dr. Laszlo Jomf, who used a mysterious substance called imipolex G to condition Slothrop's responses. Pointsman and his colleagues uncover a troubling connection. They believe Slothrop's erections signal incoming German rockets, but in reverse chronological order, stimulus and response in the wrong sequence. Slothrop's psychological evaluations reveal abnormally heightened paranoia. Pointsman sees Slothrop as his ticket to fame and a Nobel Prize, while Mexico's statistical analysis suggests this could be mere coincidence. Pointsman creates an elaborate scheme involving a trained octopus named Grigori and a Dutch double agent named Katja Borgesius, who once worked at a rocket launch site in Holland where she engaged in a sadomasochistic relationship with a German officer named Captain Blissero, also known as Weissman. Blissero, along with his young male companion Gottfried, performed depraved role-playing games with Katja before she defected to England. Chapter 2. Un Palermo Casino, Hermann Goering. In late 1944, Slothrop is sent to Monaco's casino Hermann Goering, accompanied by Bloat and his colleague Tantivy. On the beach, Slothrop rescues Katja from an orchestrated attack by Grigori, the octopus. Katja seduces Slothrop as part of Pointsman's plan to study his conditioning. After their liaison, Slothrop discovers his uniform and documents stolen, his hotel room emptied, and Tantivy mysteriously disappeared. Sir Stephen Dodson Truck becomes Slothrop's new handler, teaching him about V-2 rockets while monitoring his erections. Growing suspicious, Slothrop gets Dodson Truck drunk and learns he's being manipulated by them. Through their conversations, Slothrop discovers more about the rocket specifications, particularly about the Schwarzgerät, device S, numbered 00000, and the mysterious imipolex G installation. Using Dodson Truck's communication device, Slothrop contacts headquarters to learn more about imipolex G. His inquiries lead him to discover it was invented by Laszlo Jomf, the same scientist who conducted experiments on him as a child. Shortly after, Dodson Truck disappears, and Katja turns cold towards Slothrop. At the White Visitation Facility, Pointsman employs Katja to participate in an elaborate scheme to manipulate his superior, Brigadier Ernest Pudding. Each night, Katja, disguised as Domina Nocturna, fulfills Pudding's sadomasochistic fantasies that evoke his traumatic World War I experiences. Back in Monaco, Slothrop discovers Tantivy's obituary, convincing him that sinister forces are at work. After stealing a car, he escapes to Nice and then Zurich, adopting the alias Ian Scuffling, a British war correspondent. In Zurich, he meets several underground figures, including a smuggler named Mario Schweitar, who provides information about YAMF and MPLXG, and an Argentine anarchist named Franco Squaladozzi, who hires Slothrop to deliver a message to Geneva. Slothrop learns that his father, Broderick Slothrop, allowed Dr. Jamf to experiment on him as a child in exchange for a Harvard scholarship. Meanwhile, the researchers at the White Visitation discover they can no longer track Slothrop, and the women marked on his map cannot be verified as real people. Chapter 3. In the Zone, Part 1. In May 1945, with the war in Germany over, Slothrop travels through the Zone, the chaotic, lawless post-war Germany, toward an underground rocket facility called Mittelwerk in Nordhausen. On a train, he reads the file he obtained in Zurich, discovering that his father sold him to Yamp for experiments where he was conditioned to respond sexually to Imapol-XG. Slothrop has vague memories of a forbidden room where something was done to him. On the train, Slothrop encounters Major Dwayne Marvey, a racist American officer, and Oberst Ensign, leader of the Schwarz Commando, a group of Herero rocket technicians from former German colonies in Africa. After reaching Nordhausen, Slothrop spends the night with Gelly Tripping, a self-described witch, who tells him the S in Schwarzgerät stands for Schwarz, black. At Mittelwerk, now a tourist attraction for intelligence agents searching for rocket technology, Slothrop discovers the factory was built by concentration camp slaves from the adjacent Camp Dora. While exploring the underground factory, he encounters Major Marvey again and escapes after a chaotic chase through the tunnels. Meanwhile, Enzian leads the Schwarz Commando, who are secretly assembling their own rocket. Enzian, the half-German, half-Herero son of a Russian sailor, survived the German genocide of the Herero people in colonial Africa and was raised by Weissman Cherblichero. Now Enzian's half-brother, a Soviet officer named Chicharin, seeks to kill him. Slothrop continues his journey, escaping the zone in a hot air balloon after Marvey pursues him in an airplane. In Berlin, he meets a German drug dealer named Sori and dons a new disguise, Rocket Man, complete with cape and horned helmet. Sora sends Slothrop to Potsdam to retrieve a stash of hashish hidden near a diplomatic conference. During this period, we learn about Franz Pöckler, a rocket engineer who worked on the Schwarzgerät 00000 under Weissman/Blichero's supervision. Pöckler was manipulated through his daughter Ilse, whom he was allowed to see only once a year at a children's resort. In reality, Ilse was held prisoner at Camp Dora, serving as Weissman's leverage over Pöckler. Slothrop retrieves the drugs but is confronted by someone who claims to have followed him all the way. He also encounters Margarita Erdmann, a film actress who starred in pornographic horror movies directed by Gerhard von Gohl. Margarita believes Slothrop's false papers bearing the name Max Schlepsig, possibly her daughter Bianca's father, are genuine, indicating the real Schlepsig must be dead. Chapter 4. In the zone, Slothrop and Margarita engage in increasingly sadomasochistic sexual encounters. Meanwhile, the Schwarz Commando interrogate Horst Achtfaden, a rocket engineer who worked on the Schwarzgerät project. Enzian wants information about the Schwarzgerät black device, but Achtfaden claims limited knowledge. Slothrop and Margarita travel by barge towards Swinmun, a port city and rocket launch site. They stop at a spa town called Bad Karma, where they board a ship named Anubis. The ship hosts a wild, drug-fueled party that culminates in an orgy. Aboard the ship, Slothrop meets Miklos Thanats, Margarita's husband, who worked at Blichero's rocket site in the Netherlands. The next morning, Slothrop wakes beside Margarita's 11-year-old daughter Bianca and has sex with her. Afterward, Bianca wants to run away with him, but Slothrop, feeling disconnected and disturbed, leaves the cabin. On deck, Slothrop meets Morituri, a Japanese naval officer who tells him about Margarita's dark past, including her attempts to drown Jewish children in the mud baths at Bad Karma, claiming to be Shekinah, queen, daughter, bride, and mother of God. When Slothrop returns, Margarita has locked herself in a bathroom, accusing him of being one of them. When a storm hits, the Anubis passengers become violently ill. Slothrop searches for Bianca, but is attacked and pushed overboard. He's rescued by Frau Gnaub and her son Otto, black market operators with a barge. Slothrop joins a mission to rescue filmmaker Gerhard von Goell, who has been captured by Russians at the Pynchon rocket site. During the rescue, Slothrop dons a Russian uniform stolen from Chicherin. After successfully freeing von Goell, the group abandons one of their companions, Klaus Nerisch, who knows about the Schwarzgerät program. Elsewhere, Incheon leads a mission to prevent a rival Herero faction, the Empty Ones, from terminating the pregnancy of a woman named Maria. When they arrive, the basement is empty. While searching for Maria's husband, Pavel, Incheon contemplates the war's meaning and the purpose of the Jamf refinery, which he believes contains messages like a true text. Von Goell sends Slothrop back to the Anubis to retrieve the hashish. During this mission, Slothrop discovers Bianca's dead body. Traumatized, he leaves the group at the next port and continues his journey alone. Chapter 5. The Counterforce emerges. Slothrop travels through the zone, dressed in Chicherin's Russian uniform, with the insignia removed. He walks alongside refugees, sleeps in a farmhouse, and has conversations with trees, apologizing for his family's paper manufacturing business. He meets a German boy named Ludwig, who's searching for his pet lemming, Ursula. Slothrop hears his ancestor William Slothrop speaking to him about Jesus and lemmings, comparing Christ walking on water to the sacrifice of millions of lemmings jumping to their deaths. In a church basement, Slothrop encounters Major Marvy again, who mistakes him for a Russian intelligence officer. Marvy reveals plans to attack the Schwarz Commando at midnight. Slothrop warns the Schwarz Commando of the impending attack. Chicherin, meanwhile, has learned from the captured Nerisch about Rocket 00000, fired by Blachero at Nordhausen. He imagines forming a new kind of state based on rocket technology, one that transcends borders like the Catholic Church. Slothrop continues his journey dressed as Plekazunga, the pig hero, after participating in a village festival. He meets Franz Pückler at a children's resort, where Pückler shares information about Jamf and Imapol XG. Pückler reveals that Slothrop's uncle, Lyle Bland, was associated with Jamf and involved with the Freemasons and various conspiracies. Bland eventually became obsessed with mysticism and had out-of-body experiences before announcing he was going out for good and never getting up again. At a brothel outside Cuxhaven, Slothrop's pig costume is stolen by Marvy, who is mistakenly arrested and castrated by Pointsman's men, who were actually targeting Slothrop. Slothrop dreams about Bianca while sleeping next to a woman named Solange, who is actually Lenny Pückler, Franz's estranged wife. Chicherin arrives at the rocket launch site near Lüneburg Heath, where Blachero fired Rocket 00000. He observes von Goell filming a movie for Argentine anarchists about their national hero, Martin Fierro. Chicherin fears he may not survive an impending confrontation, suspecting he's being manipulated by Soviet intelligence. Meanwhile, at the White Visitation, researchers discuss Slothrop, who appears to be scattered all over the zone, and increasingly difficult to track or even identify as a coherent individual. Pointsman has been disgraced after the mistaken castration of Major Marvy. Chapter 6. The Ascent of Rocket 00000. In August 1945, a loose coalition called the Counterforce begins to form, including Pirate Prentice, Osby Field, Cache, Roger Mexico, and others opposed to the shadowy them. Slothrop, increasingly detached from his former self, finds a harmonica in a stream, the same one he lost years ago at the Roseland Ballroom, though he no longer remembers this. He has lost interest in his quest for the truth about himself and his conditioning, seeing his selfhood as a burden. Roger Mexico, still pining for Jessica, who returned to her boyfriend Jeremy after the war, confronts Pointsman at a London meeting, urinating on the table and the officials present. Mexico joins the Counterforce, recognizing that the paranoid worldview is actually inward-looking rather than outward-looking. Cache meets with Enzian and the Herero community, who have incorporated her story with Blachero into their rocket-centric mythology. Enzian tells Katja to find Slothrop to free herself from guilt. The Hereros have captured Thanats, who was with Blachero before the end. Under interrogation, Thanos reveals his experiences after being knocked off the Anubis, including his time with former Camp Dora prisoners, who recreated elements of the prison camp in their village. Gelly Tripping uses witchcraft to locate Chicharine, fearing a fatal confrontation between him and his half-brother Enzian. Through her magic, she arranges a meeting between the two men, but neither recognizes their relation, and they part peacefully. The narrative flashes back to the final days of the war, when Blachero prepared Gottfried for his final role. Dressed entirely in white and encased in a shroud made of Imapol XG, Gottfried is placed inside Rocket 00000. The rocket contains a radio that allows Blachero to speak to Gottfried, but not vice versa, meaning the exact moment of his death will never be known. In September 1945, Enzian and 12 Herero men take their assembled rocket, numbered 00001, the second in its series, to Lüneburg Heath. For the Hereros, rockets have religious significance. Good rockets take people to the stars, while evil ones bring about the world's suicide. Enzian plans to sacrifice himself inside their rocket, becoming a hero for his people. The narrative fractures into 15 shorter subsections with jumbled chronology, reflecting Slothrop's disintegration and the rocket's ascent. We learn that Blachero launched Rocket 00000 with Gottfried inside, encased in Imapol XG. As the rocket reaches its peak and begins to fall, the narrative jumps decades ahead to the Orpheus Theater in Los Angeles, where a rocket is poised to strike. In the final moments, the narrative addresses the audience directly, encouraging them to sing a hymn written by Slothrop's ancestor William, which assured those outside God's grace that they might one day find the light. The novel ends mid-sentence with, "Now everybody," as Rocket 00000 descends toward the theater. Throughout this fragmented conclusion, Slothrop himself has dissolved as a character, scattered all over the zone, his identity dispersed among the post-war chaos. The novel's closing suggests both imminent destruction and the possibility of transcendence, leaving readers suspended in the moment before impact, invited to join in a communal song as the rocket falls. 583.